All right. Hi, everybody. It's our CFB Talk 124. It's Tuesday night. We love to just talk to you about college football, about whatever you want to talk about. So if you'd like to join us, just hit request. It's going to be me, Bob Kyrie, and my regular co hosts, JD Moore and Sirius. So we're firing this up right now. In fact, I just see JD. I'm going to go ahead and add him. And again, if you'd like to talk to us, we'd like to hear from you. So just go ahead and hit request from the Twitter app and we will get to you. I see Sirius is here. Hey, JD, how are you doing tonight?
Man, it is cold in Austin, Texas tonight. I know that y'all Northerners always laugh at us when, it gets down to about 30 degrees and we got our sleeting ice on the roads, just kind of shutting everything down. But man, it is cold out here today, bundled up with a nice warm fire in my house, trying to make the best of this frozen tundra situation. Below freezing is not a temperature that we consistently have, nor are we prepared for it.
Bro, I live in Minnesota. Like, I have zero tolerance for Texans complaining about cold. It's almost like Floridians. I mean, it's been it was negative 26 with the wind chill when I woke up this morning. So it can get a lot colder. Hey, Sirius, how are you? You able to get on?
Yep, I'm here.
Is it warm where you are or colder? Somewhere in between.
I'm not, considering what you two just said, I'm not going to answer that question.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We already have someone up here, and we'd love to. Oh no, it dropped him. Oh shoot, we had someone up here for a second. Again, if you'd like to join the conversation, just go ahead and hit request. Always stuff to talk about in college football at all levels. We always love hearing from you. So yeah, what? Oh, actually, I see someone wants to join us right now. Let's go ahead and get you up here, Harry James Taylor. We're adding you right now. Harry, are you up here?
I am. What's going on, guys?
Not much. How are you?
Howdy.
I'm terrific. Pretty excited about the Big 12 schedule finally being released. I don't know it took so long, but it's finally out. We're ready to rock and roll with that, I guess. The thing that shocked me about the whole process is that, two things really. A, it's that they kind of put my Sooners in kind of an awkward position. I really expected like the Cincinnati and the BYU trip to kind of correspond with before and after Texas, kind of that area. They kind of didn't do that and screwing us over that way, but they did kind of screw us over in that you have to go all the way out to Brigham Young, out to Utah, and then you don't even get a full break. You get basically a week, really, and it's not even a full week because you have to get Thanksgiving Day off and all that. But we'll play Saturday, and then the following Friday, I guess, would be a senior night against TCU. But Red, speaking of TCU, have you seen their road schedule?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, I mean,
that is horrid.
Again, just with that back half scheduling, man, you're going on the road to Texas Tech on a Thursday night. Then you got the Oklahoma game right after Thanksgiving. It is not exactly a friendly back half for TCU at all.
Well, it's not only that, JD, but also that first one is Iowa State. No, Houston. Houston, they're coming off of the high, and they know what they want to do. Iowa State, it seems like every team but Oklahoma has trouble up in Ames, so there is that one circled. And then you talk about it, the Thursday night against Tech, and then Oklahoma to finish it out. That's not an easy road for the defending Big 12 champs, and basically their entire team is depleted now. This is not going to be the same team that went out to Arizona, Kyler Murray's country in Arizona, knocked off Michigan, and then went to the national championship. This is not going to be the same team.
Well, hey, first, before you say anything else, TCU did end up going to that national championship game, but you got to remember, Oklahoma actually gets to miss the Big 12 defending champs this year because Kansas State ain't on that schedule for this year. You ain't going to have any kind of spookiness from Chris Kleiman in Boomer Sooner country.
Or Aranda.
No.
Because Aranda has our number 2 a little bit.
Absolutely.
That's pretty interesting. I saw that. I noticed that.
Yes, and I think that's also just one thing that is just absolutely wild in this schedule. I know that, Georgia ended up having to cancel that series, which really does hurt Oklahoma's non-conference schedule and general overall schedule for this year. But man, one of the things that just blows my mind is some of your big games this year are going to be on the road at Cincinnati, on the road at BYU, and on the road at Tulsa, which is just the strangest game that I could imagine, like not just even playing in state, but in state against the G5, against someone who isn't necessarily a rival. Because I can understand, TCU and SMU going at it, Houston pairing up against another Texas school like a Baylor or a Texas Tech, where they have the history with that. For Oklahoma to go on the road to Tulsa, pair that in with the rest of the schedule this year. What a wild schedule this year for Oklahoma.
Yeah, JD, I'll let some of the other people get on here real quick and have some fun with that. But I will say that you're right. When the SEC says no, because you might be coming to inside the SEC in 2 or 3 years, and we don't want to mess with that. We don't want to mess with the conference schedule, so you're going to have to reset it. I think that Tulsa might not have been the best choice, but I think that was one of the easier choices because now they're going to be up there with Tulane. They're going to be a couple of the sleepers with, by the way, UCF and those guys coming into the Big 12. By the way, that's going to be the game right after Texas, a week after the bye week after Texas. So we'll have Texas the bye week and then UCF. So that's going to be pretty interesting. But also the fact is who the head coach is there now. He and Brent Venables and Kevin Wilson have a very good relationship. They were good friends. They were at Oklahoma at the same time, so that kind of gave them a little bit of a path in there. And who's to say that they can't compete with New Orleans now or with Tulane now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the new American Athletic Conference, the investment that they're putting in with Kevin Wilson, they realized with Phil Montgomery, they had kind of their limit of what Tulsa was going to be able to do as a program. I know they're a really small school, roughly about 5,000 students or so, private school as well. So you've got a couple of limitations with Tulsa as an institution. But for them to actually pull the trigger on Phil Montgomery after having him for so long and deciding, hey, you know what? We want somebody who has Power 5 experience because, again, Kevin Wilson had his time at Indiana. He's coached at Ohio State. He's coached at Oklahoma. He has the history of working at a Power 5 level and knows what is needed to coordinate at a Power 5 level. For Tulsa to decide, hey, you know what? We want to try to achieve that type of success in this new AAC. It's going to be very fun to see how Tulsa reacts from here.
Yeah, it's always been a tough program, only because of how small it is. It's one of the smallest enrollments in all of FBS, I think, along with Rice and obviously I think like Air Force. So, and Air Force is its own special, situation in and of itself. But yeah, man, thanks for joining us, Harry. This has been an interesting way to start it off. And again, if you'd like to join us, if you have thoughts on college football or anything we've talked about or anything you'd like us to talk about or discuss, feel free to hit request. We love hearing from you. It's on the app. You got to use your phone to do it, but we'd love to have you join us. But looking at some of the stuff that's happened in the past week, just because and I see someone actually wants to join in, so Doc Holliday, I will get you up here. It's good to see you coming back. But yeah, I think later I'd love to talk about what's going on with Stetson Bennett. That dude he's got some Johnny Manziel moments kind of reminding me here, a little throwback to that. But hey, Doc Holliday, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm doing good. I'm trying not to freeze out here.
Oh, where are you at?
I'm in Dallas, man. So we are pretty much about to have cabin fever for the next couple of days, for like at least 2 days. So for a little bit, I get an introduction for myself, a little bit about myself. I have a podcast, YouTube podcast. It's called HBCU Overdrive with Doc Holliday. I go live pretty much 5 days out of the week. We talk about this thing as far as dealing with HBCU sports, mainly with football. I deal with the Southwestern Athletic Conference. That's the main thing I talk about is SWAC, the SWAC schools, Jackson State, which is my alma mater, Also try to get in talks about the MEAC, the the SIAC, and
Oh, I think it faded out there, or is this my mic having the same error before, guys? Last couple of weeks, by the way, I should warn everybody. The last couple of weeks, we had this weird error coming up on Twitter Spaces where the host, myself, couldn't hear even my co-host speaking. But Doc, if we can, I think I got confirmation. It just sort of the mic kind of killed on your side, but we'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear. There's something the hot news that's been obviously in the last week or so, a little over a week, was the whole situation at Bethune-Cookman and Ed Reed. I'd love to hear your take on that.
My take on that is with Bethune-Cookman. We all saw Ed Reed was there. He was not a coach, but he did not have a contract signed with the school. The school and him, they were still working out details in the contract. Ed Reed goes online to Instagram Live, and he kind of, everybody saw. Bethune, they instantly pulled the off the board. They didn't ratify his contract, so basically, he was only named the head coach and principal. But until you sign that contract, you're not fully as the head coach. So then the things are coming out as far as what's going on at the school. The football players, the school protested. Football players still want Ed Reed to be the coach, but I feel like, and I told them, in a sense, that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed, and I think it Reed in a sense, because now with that rant, it might for you become an actual head football coach, college football coach. But other than that, down the line, there should be some form of naming of a coach. I don't know when it will happen, but it will be this week. So talks with other people that want to become the head coach of the school, but they have a rough time ahead of them because of
they do.
The fact that, Bethune-Cookman is a small private HBCU institution in Daytona Beach, Florida. They, was slashed, getting accreditation restored. That's the reason why you see Reggie Theus, who's the head basketball coach for the school, is also doing double duty as the So it is good news coming out of. It'll be good news coming out of Bethune. I want to see what kids are staying on as far as who's going to sign tomorrow for intent.
Your mic is coming in and out. I'm not sure what's happening. We're hearing most of what you're saying, but sometimes your mic is going out on us, and it's getting super faint. So, because you were saying what's got you excited about what's coming up, I didn't quite hear what came after that.
Okay. Can you hear me?
It's like it was going super faint. Like I could hear you, but I've got a pretty sophisticated sound system on my side.
I'm
doing sure
it on my phone. Can you hear me now?
I can, absolutely.
Okay, it might be my left earpiece, AirPod. But
by the way, I just have to say one last thought on Bethune-Cookman before I forget. I mean, it's going to be kind of awkward now because they've got a game at Miami, and Ed Reed would have really made it kind of a fun sort of angle with what have otherwise been, especially at this point, a pretty pretty outgunned program walking in to Hard Rock Stadium, but now it's just awkward. I mean,
right. It's going to be awkward. But like I said, it should be once they name the head coach and he gets in and he implements what he wants to do as far as how the program is going to be ran, it should be good sledding with Bethune-Cookman. So I don't want to. My thing is, I don't want to pose any type of negative stigma on Bethune. I want to see all the positive come out of for the school. Bethune-Cookman and HBCU football, when they're good, they are good. Like when they're on, they are pretty much on spot on. But we hopefully having them be able to compete in Southwestern Athletic Conference would be a good thing for the conference as a whole, and also with Bethune-Cookman.
Absolutely. Well, Doc, it's been great having you on, man, and I always appreciate hearing your thoughts. I know we've heard you before, and definitely check out if you're into listening, learning more about HBCU football. He's got a lot going on, and you can check him out at his handle with Overdrive. That sounds real fun, man. Thanks so much for joining us, man.
All right, thank you, man.
Absolutely, anytime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just wanted to change gears, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts, JD. And by the way, again, and it's serious, but if you want to join our conversation, please hit request. Everyone's welcome. This is Tuesday nights with our CFB Talk. We love hearing from you, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the adventures of Stetson Bennett this week. What do you guys think?
Reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield and his attempt at running from the cops. You know, kind of another undersized QB who didn't get away with it, and you know, alcohol was definitely to blame. Overall, kind of a minor incident. Some people are talking about how it's going to hurt his draft stock, but I mean, he's like a projected 4th round pick. You know, he's small. He doesn't have the measurables that the pro guys like. Don't really know that they care that he, you know, kind of got like a drunken disorderly or whatever because he was, you know, knocking on hotel room doors at 6 a.m. But we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't know if we got video of that, like we did with Baker though. That was what they made that one I think a little more amusing. But Jenny, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm also in agreement as well. I mean, this is not a guy where like a Johnny Manziel came in and he had a history that came in from Texas A&M. People already knew, hey, he's a character. Hey, he's got these own issues. Stetson Bennett, I think, is a late round guy who is going to be a late round guy regardless. I don't think this necessarily changes anything. And again, for a guy who his biggest banker for all time is going to be the back-to-back national championship quarterback at Georgia. I mean, that's essentially what he's going to be banking on for the rest of his life, not necessarily an NFL career. I'm going to be very, very fine with, you know, whatever happens with him in the draft, because this isn't going to be a whole big deal for him.
You know, one of the comments that made me really laugh on our CFB when this sort of came out was, I guess it was JWW Berger, a Michigan fan. I mean, so no stake in any of this. He's like, beating TCU like a drum was bad enough. He's going now door to door to TCU fans at 6 a.m. to rub it in just because it was in the Metroplex. I thought that makes it actually even funnier if you imagine it, though. But, you know, I mean, I think the only thing that could possibly harm him is the fact that he does kind of party hard, and, you know, he's in his 20s still. I mean, I don't think he's quite reached 20. I mean, what is he, 25 now? He's actually fairly old. But, you know, at the same time, I mean, you know, just I do remember the jokes at the because obviously I was at the game covering it for our CFB, and I remember the morning afterwards that they always do the championship kind of coach and players conference, and at the last second they said he wasn't coming, and they kind of swapped in. They swapped in a different offensive player, and all of the media were immediately asking, kind of jokingly among each other, like, "Oh, was he out partying?" Because he did, you know, famously the previous year, and he showed up on Good Morning America looking pretty hungover. So, you know, I think that's the worst thing that could be said. It's like, man, this kind of keeps happening, but I think, you know, he can get it together. He's able to get it together and be a star quarterback at an FBS program and win League Two national championships in the SEC. He can do it. So, but that's like the only possible concern I would have from all of this.
Look, when his draft stock will be fine. All he's got to do is make sure he reads the playbook and he gives him the $100 bill back, and it'll be all okay, and he'll be fine.
Oh, hey, yeah, we got someone else who wants to join us to talk. Pete the Greek, what's going on?
Hey guys, just real quick, I just want to get your thoughts on what does it speak to about the Georgia program now? You've had a couple incidents back to back. What are your guys' thoughts on that? And is this just a coincidence, or are we starting to see some of the warts starting to pop up? What are your thoughts?
I think this is two very different kind of things that we're talking about here. The Stetson Bennett issue is pretty lighthearted. Nothing at all related to the type of tragedy that Georgia had a few weeks ago with a player and a staffer dying. That it seems there's still an investigation going on with what exactly happened. The details there, but no matter what, that's a tragedy, and I don't think that's something that we really need to wade in too much and start judging Kirby Smart for signs of problems with his program based off of something like that. Especially when we don't know all the details into how it happened, what was at play there. But teams have had issues before. I don't know if two incidents, as unrelated as they are, is really something to judge it by. The real test is just going to be the product they put back on the field. This year they certainly didn't let having that high of a championship hold them back when it came to actually playing the games. They had a couple of hiccups, but in a year where everybody had at least one, they still kind of shrugged it off and still finished the season with a clean sheet. So I think that the kind of off the field stuff like that, I don't think it's going to be the make or break thing that says that the program's in decline or there's a festering issue or anything like that. It's just going to be whether or not they can focus and actually come out and perform on the field come this fall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things, too, is it's really difficult to look at two very wholly unrelated situations and kind of grasp at straws to say, oh, we're seeing something fall apart with the program, because we hear that in every single dynasty that gets built up. Every single time that we see like a Clemson be built up, an Alabama be built up, there's always some kind of argument that says, oh, is this the thing that's going to take the dynasty down? And unfortunately, I think this is the first thing that people can try to grasp at straws to say, like, hey, maybe this is going to be something to take down the Georgia dynasty. Because I think when people look at their schedule for next year, they're very well slated again to make it into the playoffs, to go on a deep run, likely be a good favorite for the national championship again next year. And I think when it comes down to people just trying to find any reason to not see that, they're just going to try to grasp at anything, even if it's for tragic reasons, even if it's for nonsense reasons. I would not amount any of this as smoke being fire or anything else like that.
One thing, though, just as sort of a lighter note, it isn't quite the same as the running gag that Mark Richt has lost control of the Georgia program. That was such a go-to for many years. So that's definitely something, though, that the idea of the program losing control has had a history of memedom and all of that stuff. But yeah, I agree with my co-hosts on this. It's just this feels like a weird just kind of blip of things. And granted, I mean, once you become this successful, once you're a back-to-back champion, as if it wasn't already, the microscope wasn't on them last year. I mean, now it's all the more so. And in SEC country, and I get it, it's why they're so fun and wild and interesting. Man, people are going to be looking close, and we'll see. But again, I agree. The tragedy of what happened, particularly with the program and the car crash, and just with granted, I mean, he's wrapping up, but even this Bennett stuff it isn't anything new, and it is sort of just something that it's happened, and again, things get close in that petri dish. I mean, gosh, I remember when it was what was the last program that really had that? I think FSU got that quite a bit, when FSU was good.
Yeah, we did, and I didn't mean in any
Oh yeah, no,
way.
and you didn't. It didn't sound that way. It didn't sound that way, but it was a good question, and it kind of set that up because I was thinking of like I remember when when Florida State was at its most recent peak. I mean, it's probably it looks like it's on its way back up, but I mean that was something they always had happen. Remember, everyone was sort of like, oh, what's the quarterback doing? Oh my gosh, every little thing. So then people are like, does he have a control of the program? And you're just kind of like, yeah, but I mean, it needs a little bit more there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I still remember back in the day when Spencer Hall created that the original version of the Fulmer Cup was the whole idea of the Switzer Slam was a program winning a national championship, the Heisman, and winning the Fulmer Cup of the most criminal activity in the offseason. I don't know if we've quite reached that point, but yeah.
No.
Or even
and I can only relate it to like from our program with Jimbo Fisher. You see a little bit of consistency, right? I mean, you see how our program went from a powerhouse to losing control, or what at least it seemed like, and then as that coach moves on to Texas A&M, you see a little bit of that same storyline.
Well, the other example that comes to my mind is Urban Meyer's tenure at Florida, where they had something like 31 players get arrested during his tenure, and of course, it come to find out in that case, sometimes it's a sign of a coach being checked out, where he's not, making sure that the players meet certain standards. On the other hand, like with what we found out with some of the people that Urban had on his roster, it was a case of, well, we have a talented football player, and we're just going to ignore all of these red flags that keep popping up and the trouble that he gets into because he's a really good football player, and we're going to win a lot of games with, zero morality involved. I don't think that this is kind of the same situation with Georgia right now. It's not exactly a big long list of players who are doing things wrong and also facing zero repercussions. So definitely there have been programs in the past that have won a lot of games and had these issues that have festered and developed over time. Still seems a little bit early to kind of make those comparisons right now.
I don't think you can. I think Kirby seems, at least, on the eye test, that he is a guy that'll do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh my gosh, my mind just totally crashed right there. I had something I wanted to add because Sirius, I thought, put it very succinctly, and I think he put it really well. Well, one thing that always strikes me whenever I see or at least read about some of the issues that some of the players have, I sympathize only because as I've gotten older and you start to read the data, that's like the especially for men, that is one of the most difficult times. If there's going to be kind of an issue that pops up with mental health, it tends to appear in that 18 to like 24 year range, which is the prime time for a lot of, college players and then, young NFL players. And so, I mean, you can be physical talent and have that kind of an issue and have to address it. So I do sympathize with a lot of them in those situations. But of course, a lot of these programs have a great amount of facilities and care to take care of that.
I think one of the things that I'd also love to at least look over at the moment for right now, we've already talked about the Big 12 and their new schedule coming out. I think one of the things that I'm also very interested in, at least from that perspective for right now, is on top of all this stuff that we've talked about with Oklahoma and some of the teams that are staying in the Big 12, we also have, Texas is going to Houston to play them for the first time since 2002, and to play them at Houston. What a absolutely delightful matchup for them to have in that, like, what will probably be their final Big 12 schedule, to also have Texas Tech at home during Thanksgiving for that type of rivalry week game. I think that's going to be another fantastic matchup. But similarly to see, we noted it a little bit earlier today. I thought it was very hilarious to see out of the 14 teams that are in the Big 12 right now, you had 12 teams that very eagerly posted out custom videos, custom graphics, whatever else they wanted to push season ticket sales and announce their Big 12 schedule. Both Texas and Oklahoma just decided, you know what, we're just going to retweet the Big 12 announcement and we're going to call that a day. I found that to be absolutely delightful in all of that stuff that was happening with Big 12 scheduling today. And I know that we lost Ricky, but we're trying to get some folks up here. There is nothing better than Elon Musk's $44 billion investment into Twitter Spaces. But as we're trying to get some of these folks up, I can see folks like Sir William. I can see John Paxson. We're trying to get y'all all up here in just a hot second. But of course, please go ahead and request on up as we can get y'all up here. Serious, I know one of the other things, if we want to continue talking on a couple of other topics out here, as we're trying to bring some other speakers up.
Hey guys,
this coordinator hunt for Alabama seemed to take.
JD, I'm gonna drop off, but somebody's putting some stuff.
We got it. No, we took care of it. It was actually
on your site.
It was a pair of accounts. I mean, they try to police this site, but we all know how that one goes. So we got it taken care of. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hey, Andre, what's going on? I know we've talked to you before.
How's it going, everyone?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I just personally want to say I hope UCF goes 0-12 next year in the Big 12, and I want all 12 losses to be the most embarrassing losses ever. Sincerely, your friends in Tampa. That's all I got to say.
The Schadenfreude would be very real if that were to happen.
Oh my goodness. All right. Guys, I wanted to just sort of, and again, if you want to join us, just go ahead and hit request. One other topic I wanted to toss your guys' way is, what do we make about one of my favorite stories is this whole NIL thing with Nick Saban. There was a player, and Coach Saban seems to have said this, allegedly they wanted $500,000 and this is the quote, actually, this is Nick Saban speaking. One of them wanted $500,000 and for us to get his girlfriend into law school at Alabama and pay for it. I showed him the door. And this is reportedly associated with Saban. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, I just love to get your thoughts. I have some thoughts on this, but I wanted to hear yours.
So to start off, supposedly some of these were current players who were kind of, if you don't give me this, I'm going to transfer, which would make more sense for why they would want their girlfriend to get into Bama law school instead of, like an 18-year-old recruit asking for their girlfriend to get into Bama law. Or even somebody in a transfer portal situation. So that kind of helps make the situation make a little bit more sense. But yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous to even go in with that kind of an ask. I mean, I get that you can get admissions to kind of, let in some people that maybe wouldn't make it normally, which you can argue that they have football as an extracurricular and they get the same kind of benefit of the doubt as far as that goes, is like letting in someone who's an accomplished pianist or something like that. But using it to try to get your significant other into law school is just beyond the pale. That's bold.
And it's a girlfriend, no less. It ain't even your spouse. Anyone who's been through the law school rigmarole, and I'm one of those, that it'll absolutely ruin a relationship for some people. I didn't have that. Luckily, I wasn't. I knew that going into law school and having a relationship didn't usually work. It was absolutely the truth. That's why you meet someone in law school or in medical school or something. But oh my gosh, like that is just bold for someone. And imagine this. Imagine this guy thought, like, I'm going to get my girlfriend into the law school. And Alabama's a decent law school. It's like in the top, I want to say 25. It does well in the Alabama market. And but of course, Alabama, to be fair, Alabama's legal market isn't enormous, but it's only 2 hours away from, Atlanta. So it does great in Atlanta. And that is a major legal market. So, but imagine like this player then saying, oh, by the way, you're getting you into I bet he didn't even bring up the doubling the alleged amount. I think it was like supposed to be $250,000, and he wanted to double that and get his girlfriend in. But imagine he's going to tell his girlfriend, like, "Yeah, I tried to get you in, and Nick Saban pulled my offer." But that is one of the most amazing requests. And I mean, there's diplomacy involved here, I gotta say. And I know another one of our users made that point, and again, that was probably one of my favorite comments, because I mean, obviously this thing has been going on forever. I mean, in the past, players have certainly probably asked for under the table, kind of, getting and securing that bag and all of that stuff. But there's diplomacy involved. Even when you hear about the Pony Express days, like allegedly the way the Trans Am was made is he went and saw it at a dealership and said he liked it, and but he didn't like explicitly ask for it. And next thing you know, he's got it. That was kind of the way. But to just go up to Nick Saban and flat out make a demand like that is pretty damn bold, especially when you're a high school player and you haven't even proven yourself. Now, I could see, let's say it was Bryce Young, whether he was going to come back, if there was ever like a player of that level. I could see maybe some negotiation points there, but like, man, in high school.
Yeah, and I mean, there were some interesting comments, because it was like, oh, you're making this big ask, and it's, for Alabama law school. But to be fair, yeah, they're number 25 in the country, and they're maybe not the most competitive for a white shoe big law firm kind of job. But if you're going to practice in the Southeast, and especially in Alabama, or you want to go into like politics and that kind of thing, it's a pretty good inroad there, considering just the people that you meet in the networking. If you can get in, they're relatively selective for a large state school program.
Yeah, no, he's not. It's not a joke by any stretch, and I definitely didn't mean to imply that. They're I assume they're the top dog in the state. Never hurts to go in the top dog in the state, especially if you want to practice in it. That's why I advise students who I teach who are thinking about it. But anyway, we don't need to get too sidetracked into the whole law school thing. Hey, JD, what do you think about all of this?
I mean, I think first and foremost, I recognize that this is a new reality that we have in recruiting and even retainment of players. We saw a very similar situation with Florida and their recent quarterback situation. And I think it's something that coaches are going to have to deal with. Nick Saban obviously dealt with this in the way that he wanted to. And I don't think players are necessarily out of right. I mean, the worst that happens is they say no, or you don't get the option that you ideally want. But you know what? If you want to go swing for the fences and you connect on that as a player, and you have some program that says, hey, you know what? We will admit your girlfriend to law school. We will give you the amount of money that we ask for. Go for it. I'm fully in favor of these players. If they see money being thrown around, seeing offers thrown around for staff, for administration, for operations, for all these other different avenues of money and opportunity in college football, if a player wants to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm at least going to give a swing at it, more power to them. They absolutely have the right to be knocked down and rejected in the way that Nick Saban knocked them down and rejected them in this instance. You know what? I am here for players making brazen asks and brazen requests to play football at certain places. I want somebody to go to another SEC school and say, I would like $1 million and a jet ski to be your wide receiver. This is the America I want to live in.
A lot of us as fans were looking at this story and we're thinking, wow, this is just so ridiculous. Could you imagine having the chutzpah to actually go in and make that offer? And that there are players out there who are looking at this, or players' girlfriends who are looking at this, wives for, a few schools, who are looking at this and they're saying, wait, we can ask for that? Really? I mean, like it may not work, but you can ask for it. So it would actually be hilarious to see, like a list of requests that start coming through. Like some journalist needs to do an anonymous article with, what's the most ridiculous, ask that you've gotten, in the past recruiting cycle. Because we know that there's got to be some that are pretty out there. Got to get creative, guys. Like the car thing is overplayed, stuff like that. Like throw something weird in there.
$1 million and a jet ski. This is the America we want to live in.
Daniel Tosh did say that money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a jet ski. And have you ever seen anyone frown while they're on a jet ski? Just, something to consider.
I just want to tease you all and say personal watercraft because jet ski is a trademark. But
Wait,
anyway.
you think that they would actually be asking for an off-brand, personal water sport vehicle? No, you got to get the real deal.
I think Bobek is just concerned about big watercraft coming after this podcast.
Oh yeah, no. We can be the jet ski or CFB talk. I don't mind.
Technically, they're kind of like moderately sized watercraft, not really so big, but yeah.
One other topic, and again, if you guys like to join the conversation out there, just hit request. We'd love to hear from you. Miami is relieved offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis of his duties. I remember how big of a splash it was when they got him to join the program, and now here he's already being let go. And of course, a lot of Michigan fans are immediately to say that he was never a good play caller and the success had very little to do with him I should say now 2 seasons ago. But what do you guys make of that?
I mean, I remember when he went from Penn State to Alabama. That was kind of a big deal because he seemed to be pretty influential in what they were doing there. And then when Michigan was able to lure him away from Bama after just a year, that was a big deal. And then, they did pretty well under him. Michigan fans may say that they didn't do that great, but they hired him back. So, that him being out after just one season in Miami, you kind of got to wonder if maybe he wasn't the issue.
Yeah, especially when you get that big of a splash hire. I mean, this is a guy who won the Broyles Award for Best Assistant. And yes, I'm sure there's some Wolverine fans out there saying, well, he wasn't actually the guy. The other assistants and the system at Michigan allowed him to succeed and hit a lot of his weaknesses. But the fact of the matter is you took the assistant of the year and you spent a good amount of coin to get him to come down to Miami after getting a huge splash where you had fired Manny Diaz. You had brought in Kevin Steele as your defensive coordinator. You brought in Mario Cristobal and a lot of his system in from Oregon. And when you burn through that much money, and then Josh Gaddis is the only one after this disappointing season to get the high-profile firing, and especially this late in the season, I think one of the things that might have possibly happened was there might have been a very quiet, like, hey, why don't you go find another job? And we'll say that you chose to leave. And then they hit a deadline and they were like, hey, you know what? Sorry, you didn't get the Clemson offensive coordinator job. Sorry, you didn't get the Bama offensive coordinator job, but you got to go. Like, we just can't have you here for whatever reason, and we need you to just go see the door. I think especially after this season with Miami, I don't think anybody was necessarily expecting them to be, ACC champions, go to the playoff in year one under Mario. But I think nobody expected, blowout losses to Florida State, losing to Middle Tennessee State, not even making a bowl game in year one. So if Josh Gaddis is the one who ends up being the sacrificial lamb to say, hey, we're changing something down here, it's a choice. I'm not going to say it's a bad one. I'm not going to say it's a great one. But I think overall, if you're Miami and you're looking for any kind of reason to say, you know what, we're going to pin all of our money and pin all of our issues on one guy and decide that's it, you could do worse than picking your offensive coordinator.
The sicko in me is excited to see Miami's offense do actually worse this year. Just for giggles.
I mean, it'll be, the running game. Well, the consensus is he was a great wide receivers coach. As a position coach, he was exceptional. Now the question is, did he get elevated to the point where perhaps he wasn't as good or was hidden among all the talent at the 2011 Michigan Wolverines? But, I wouldn't – I'd love to kind of see him end up at like Iowa and be co-offensive coordinator there or something, because there's one where I don't think it could get worse. So, I mean, that would be interesting. Of course, that would involve an impossible decision for the Ferentz family. But
Hey, listen, make Josh Gaddis the passing game coordinator. He'll improve the passing to about 3 yards per play, and somehow Iowa will end up going with a 10-win season and a points per game of 8.
Again, if you guys would like to join us, just go ahead and hit request. We love hearing from all of you. But, serious, I'm going to aim this one in your direction because here's a name that we've talked about in the past. One of the headlines, and this is from Dennis Dodd, is that Alabama coach Nick Saban has reached out to former Tennessee coach Jeremy Pruitt regarding the Crimson Tide's vacant defensive coordinator position. What do you think? Do you think that might be a good fit if that's for real?
I mean, the man doesn't know vegetables, and he can't run a program. He's
never going to live down that asparagus. He's never going to live it down.
That might be the single greatest thing that two-a-days ever gave the world was the what's that? Asparagus? Have you never seen asparagus, Jeremy? That little scene was amazing. But yeah, he doesn't know his vegetables and he can't run a program, but he was a great defensive coordinator by all accounts at his and defensive coach at his various stops, and it's somebody that Saban knows and has worked with, for several years during his time as a head coach. So, I think that it's a safe hire. They know what to expect from him. They know what his defenses are going to look like. Lots of Bama fans were not happy with Pete Golding and the product that he put on the field this year. And we've talked about this before, that this year, Alabama didn't look like a Nick Saban Alabama team. They were undisciplined. They made stupid mistakes. They didn't have great line play. Bryce Young was having to pull a lot of plays out of a hat, basically, and just keep them alive by scrambling and being evasive. If he had a normal Bama team around him, he's probably right in the running for another Heisman. Obviously didn't happen this year. So I think that, from Saban's perspective, going back to something that is a known quantity that you're familiar with, that you trust, there's definitely a lot of appeal there. And, they had Butch Jones, former Tennessee head coach, on their staff as an analyst and an assistant to the head coach, kind of an assistant to the regional manager kind of thing, for several years. And they didn't lose to Tennessee while Butch Jones was there. So maybe they're trying to get some of that magic going again, too.
I will go ahead and play devil's advocate for just one specific story angle. And I know Jeremy Pruitt, if he comes back, there's going to be a lot of excited Alabama fans who are going to go, oh, we're going back to the Alabama defense of old. It's going to look like 2015, 2016, when our team was presumably, scoring more than their offenses were allowing. So getting more defensive touchdowns in a game or special teams touchdowns in a game than offensive touchdowns that they were allowing. But if I can have y'all consider this, according to Tony Tsoukalas, friend of the program and lead writer over at Tide Illustrated, the rival site for Alabama, if you don't end up getting Jeremy Pruitt, Todd Grantham apparently has interest in the job, and it's mutual. So if you want to get more away from a Nick Saban defense, man, let's go with some emotional blitzing, because as Florida fans can attest, Todd Grantham is definitely the guy you need if you want to beat Georgia.
We have someone up here who also wanted to add to the conversation, and I love the username Lando Lakes. What's going up? Or Londo Lakes?
No, you got it right. It's Lando. It's I'm not associated with the creamer of any sort.
The fine co-op here in Minnesota. But what's going on?
Not much. I just wanted to I could see Bama going with, the hire there for Jeremy Pruitt. With living in the state of Alabama, I mean, granted, I'm biased, Auburn alumni, but I don't think this year they would do that for whatever reason, just because of Hugh Freeze. I feel like it's a pride thing. I don't know. Auburn's already gotten the ref a second chance U, right? Recovery program now. So I would be surprised if they wanted to go that route personally. But that's just kind of my first thoughts on that, because I feel like he's a great coach, but then the sanctions and all that go in, and I don't know, maybe next year or something.
Absolutely. And I got to ask you, what are your thoughts so far? I mean, because now that we've gotten past that, the initial sort of the media did kind of drag Auburn a bit for the hire, but what do you think? How have things looked so far now that things have calmed down and attentions aren't totally focused on the hiring? Well, how are things at Auburn at the moment?
I mean, I feel like they're good. I mean, granted, I'm not Paul Feinbaum or someone else who's biased about that. I mean, I don't know. I was always kind of on board with that. I definitely feel like there's still some people out there who are not on board with him, and they'll have to get over that. At the end of the day, or just kind of like pull for basketball at this point. I don't know. I don't feel like, I was surprised that it went on as long as it did, but I don't know. He's crossing all the T's and dotting his I's right now. I mean, our recruiting for the transfer portals look really positive. I mean, it's hard not to compare him to the dude who was there before him, right? And I don't know how fair that is, but whatever. I mean, he's a better fit culturally with Auburn, like historically speaking. So I don't know. I'm happy with where things are at. I feel like, he's crossed, like I said, like showing up to, high schools, making connections with coaches there, just reaching out. There's been players that have came to Auburn now that, Harsin had talked about, or maybe I should say he who shall not be named, right? I shouldn't say his name. Um, uh, people he talked about going after, they may have tried, didn't really put a focus on it, it was forgotten about, and now they're transferring here, or, if they're still in high school, they're showing more interest. So it's just interesting from that perspective, the way, how he's like actually more involved in the recruiting stuff from what I'm seeing. So that's really encouraging. Yeah, I'm going to mute myself. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for coming on board. We appreciate all your thoughts about the Auburn program, and I think you're hitting it right on the head of, regardless of what you think of Hugh Freeze, justified and unjustified, I think one of the basic things that he's doing are the things that Brian Harsin wasn't, right? When you talk about reaching out to high school coordinators and specific avenues of recruiting that you're supposed to hit up, especially at a position like Auburn, that was something where Brian Harsin always seemed to be a fish out of water, coming out from Boise and then kind of being put in the pressure cooker of a full SEC program, and not necessarily understanding that recruiting is so key in order to compete at a high level, and especially when your rivals are Alabama and Georgia, which, one is the dynasty that's been the dynasty for over a decade now, and the other one, which is now the back-to-back national champions, and looking like it's going to be the dynasty to beat for this upcoming decade. I think no matter who you were going to hire at Auburn, you needed somebody who was willing to put in the effort of recruiting to make sure that you can at least compete at that level, because if you don't have the athletes to start, I mean, you can do schematics, you can do, trickery and kind of just essential BS in your play calling, which is kind of what Gus Malzahn did for a hot second to make sure that he got a win over Alabama, maybe once every 3 or 4 years. But when you have your two biggest rivals being at the complete apex of college football, you need to start with good, solid athletes that can keep up for all 4 quarters of the game. And at least Hugh Freeze is doing a better job at that than Brian Harsin ever did during his tenure out there.
All I'll add is, Ole Miss fans are pretty happy with Hugh Freeze until the NCAA sanctions folks showed up at the door and started asking a lot of really pointed questions. So it remains to be seen how this will turn out. We just know that it's not always gone so great in the past. So it'll be interesting to see if he can rekindle some of the magic that he had when he was at Ole Miss and, win some Iron Bowls, or if, that's kind of gone by the wayside.
Here's another kind of story that I don't want it to get lost in this past week is for the first time in 10 years, Kansas has 85 scholarship players, which is just incredible. I mean, it's a testament to what kind of a disaster the program had been in. And I just had to take a second and recognize that because it's astonishing to think that Kansas. I knew at one point they were operating quite low, but imagine the program that had that level of difficulty in maintaining a basic scholarship limit while being a P5 program, by all intents. So I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, when you say, Kansas was so low, we are less than a decade removed from Charlie Weiss literally bringing JUCO candidates onto campus. And when they go, hey, what does the depth roster look like? And he responds, hey, have you seen this pile of crap out there? I mean, that's what the man was announcing at Big 12 Media Days less than a decade ago. And now they're up to a point where they've actually replenished a roster. They made a bowl game last year. Lance Leipold, I think, got a little bit shafted in any of these Coach of the Year awards that went out. I think there's certainly some very award-winning coaches. Sonny Dykes cleaned up a lot on that. Willie Fritz over at Tulane got some well-deserved recognition. But Lance Leipold, to take Kansas out of this absolute abyss of college football and turn them into something actually watchable, actually fun, that is maybe one of the best coaching jobs we have ever seen in college football.
I have to admit, when I first saw that stat come across, I thought it was a joke because, I mean, for a P5 program to not be able to get 85 guys of some caliber that are interested in playing football, on the national level, technically, was just kind of astounding to me. And the fact that they've been able to pull it off, this change in the team's performance and everything, extremely impressive. And it's exciting to see what they're going to do next year.
Absolutely. You know what? It is now coming in about 60 minutes of talk. We usually wrap these up in about an hour. This seems like a good spot. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. On behalf of myself, Bob Ekhayeri, on behalf of my co-hosts, JD Moore and Sirius, thank you all so much for joining us. We do these every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and we'll start working in guests again on other regular bases that we will announce. So thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy this next week of the off season, and I'm going to hang up and listen.